What's up, everybody? Peter X. Coffer here. Welcome to another episode of All Things Music. So today, I had the title, but we're going to essentially look at, the issue of what uh, constitutes stealing music. I did an episode looking at the Ed Sheeran lawsuit, had it completed, and um, was about to upload it, and then the verdict came down, and rightfully so. It was a very quick verdict because it should have been a very quick verdict because Ed Sheeran did not steal that music. But what are the things, and what is what's influencing versus stealing or even borrowing? So yeah. So Ed Sheeran versus Marvin Gaye. So um, Mr. Ed Townsend, who was the co-writer for "Let's Get It On," Marvin Gaye classic song. He's the co-writer for that song. His family decided to sue Ed Sheeran, thinking out loud and saying that stole the song from him, and I think they debated a couple hours on that one. I think the musicologist did a very good job of arguing that this was laughable. Most of these things do not go to trial because if there's merit, then they settle out of court. A check is written and proper attribution for songs is given. Early in their career, the legendary Led Zeppelin, messed some of this up, and you know, nobody, they didn't go to court because, Led Zeppelin was kind of like, okay, yep. You got a point there. All right, let's figure out, uh, how much that check should be, and we'll make sure you get writing credits. So that's usually how it happens. And if it goes to court, and there's one exception, which shouldn't have been the exception, but we'll get to that shortly. Usually it's not going anywhere. But songwriters are always afraid that they'll get the wrong musicologist and they'll screw it up, and basically everybody's going to be suing everybody because you know the music world is very litigious. Let's put it that way. That people like to sue, and even in the U.S., it's even more so outside, other countries. So anyway, the little bit of the breakdown. So in the chorus, I mean, they used essentially the same chords, but they used the chords in a different, they were arranged differently, and they used them in a different order. And so there's about literally 8 bars or maybe 4 seconds of the song where you can say, yeah, that's sort of like, let's get it on. But you can't really, I mean, it's not enough there. And you can't copyright chord progressions. I mean, many of the, hit songs use the same chords. And so that basically segues into what is copyrightable. Well, it's the melody and it's the lyrics, traditionally. Again, go back to my Stairway to Heaven, and I talk about where Led Zeppelin ran into trouble, and the the classic Led Zeppelin is Dazed and Confused. They almost single-handedly. Now it's interesting, how do you get a Dazed and Confused, blues, hard-hitting rock? How do you lift that from a song in '65 from a folk singer and a folk song out of San Francisco? Well, they did, and I do think their version is better, but it still is remarkably similar, to this other version. And I can't think of the artist, but it's in that, my Stairway to Heaven, classic songs. And if you just Google Dazed and Confused Led Zeppelin and rip off, it'll come up and you can listen to them. So, the exception to this rule, of course, is Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams' Blurred Lines, and Got to Give It Up with Marvin Gaye. Um, they lost the case. Initially, the Marvin Gaye estate was awarded $7 million. It was knocked down to $5 million. This is some folks blame the musicologist on this one. Pharrell basically publicly said, when this song came out, that I'm excited about this song. I always wanted to do a song that had the feel of Marvin Gaye. Having the feel of something and is not, theft or robbery. It still boils down to the lyrics and to the melody. So, Blurred Lines and Got to Give It Up. The bass line is similar but plays different notes. And the percussion is similar. But you can't copyright bass lines because, Sly Stone could turn around. I'm pretty sure Sly Stone could turn around and sue the Marvin Gaye estate for that bass line because, that early 70s Sly Stone, I think, Got to Give It Up is 76, 77, 78. Sly was doing that stuff, really, James Brown, Sly, and George Clinton could probably sue every hip hop artist out there, if you start, being able to copyright bass lines. I mean, at some point, there's only so many notes. And the other thing, you want to, okay, so the percussion was similar. The guy who invented Four to the Floor, the beat in disco is still alive. I mean, if you start suing people for Four to the Floor, I read somewhere in the last year where like 40% of the songs on the top 40 now have that Four to the Floor dance beat. So that guy is a billionaire. The family of, Ray Charles, Ray, was the first to use the accented snare on the one, and I cover, funk in the one. There are various forms of the one, but that's the most prevalent. That was the first, and I think, it's been a couple months when I looked at the charts, but about 30% of the songs on the chart at any given time is on the one. So I mean, if, you can't. I think sticking in the melody and the lyrics is smart. So the one time Led Zeppelin, was accused of let's say, being a little too over eager in borrowing and not giving credit, and Led Zeppelin's like, nah, we're not paying that. This is garbage. Was Spirit in their song Tour saying, Stairway to Heaven was derived from that. And they had some history because, when Led Zeppelin first came to the U.S. in their first tour in the late 60s, they actually opened for Spirit. Interestingly enough, it was estimated in the trial that Stairway to Heaven generated $562 million by 2015. So that's why the song's a classic. No, there's a similar chord progression in Tours by Spirit for 4 to 6 seconds, literally. The rest of the song is totally different. So it's a little bit like, it's not as, bad as the Ed Sheeran song because, I think the notes are, not perfect and not totally similar, but you can see the there is some similarity there. So Zeppelin initially won the case, then it was reversed, and then they had the trial again, and Zeppelin ultimately won in U.S. courts. The right thing, and it was controversial, and you got Zeppelin haters out there, and they were taking their shots, but ultimately the right thing happened in the courts. Um, so there. Every once in a while, you can go onto YouTube and say so and so ripped this off or did it, did it, did it, and having the feel for another song or whatever is not, borrowing the feel. I mean, that's not illegal. The classic. One of the classic rivalries in 70s classic rock was The Who and Led Zeppelin. And Pete Townsend, is very opinionated. He's a great guitarist and the main songwriter for The Who, and he has lots of opinions about his fellow musicians, and he's not afraid to voice them. And he's never been a fan of Led Zeppelin. He basically said they ripped off our sound. And I remember he said, they took our song from Live at the Leeds. And I was like, oh, this is just Pete being Pete again. And, throwing bombs. And, and, this was, well in the 70s when he's lobbing these grenades. And then, now he's still doing, he comes off as the get off my land, my lawn, old man. But, so I went back and listened to Live at the Leeds, and particularly when it comes to the drums, he's right on. I mean, when you look at how they mic it and how they use the reverb, yeah, I was just like, okay, I thought, Pete was full of shit, but no, he was on to something here. But, he voiced his opinion. He didn't sue because he knows that's not suable. And he's voiced his opinion many times about his dislike for Led Zeppelin. So yeah, you can borrow aspects from other people and they can be salty about it and be shitty about it. But, the bottom line is, it's legal. And oftentimes, artists will do courtesy calls to other artists if, a song has the same feel as a song. And one of the famous ones is when Prince did Purple Rain. He called Journey, because of Don't Stop Believing. He's like, look, I just want you to know I did this song. I want you to hear it. If you have a problem with it, we can discuss it. And he played it, and Journey was like, cool, no problem, whatever. And the interesting thing is, Prince on the 1999 tour, and I don't know how common this is, but he sort of, and I don't know if this is economics or whether they used the same touring, logistics firm for the tour. So Prince was basically shadowing Bob Seger during I'm pretty sure the later half when it was the first half of the 1999 tour. Prince is still playing, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 seat venues, and then 1999 took off, and all of a sudden he's playing NBA Arena. So when he was doing the NBA Arena portion of the tour, he was following Bob Seger. And side note, Gemini mode again. So his first NBA arena he played was here in Indianapolis Market Square Arena. So I have to say that. Another interesting thing, the amazing Syracuse concert for the Purple Rain tour. The next date after that was Indianapolis. So the 317, gotta pump the 317. But yeah, where was I? Going off in Gemini mode again. So yeah, so Prince was following Bob Seger, and Bob Seger also had an influence. Now, I don't know if he gave a courtesy call, but Bob Seger had an influence also on Purple Rain. He knew if he could do a Bob Seger like song that, he will blow up and the album will blow up. And, listen to, Purple Rain and then turn the page. So, Purple Rain, Turn the Page by Bob Seger, and Don't Stop Believing. Yeah, Prince kind of had the feel for that, but, he didn't steal anything. I mean, he did his interpretation of that. The notes are all different. The chords are, progressions are all different. That's common, and that's not suable. And, Prince, more than likely also made the courtesy call to Bob Seger, but it has been documented he did the courtesy call with Journey. So the final case is a band called Yellow Card. Hollywood died, sued Juice World posthumously after he passed for Lucid Dreams. And I ended up dropping the suit. The singing pattern and the songs were similar at points, but again, was not strong enough to where, and I would consider Yellow Card just off that one song. I would call them alternative rock. Pretty good alternative rock too. But they wisely dropped the suit. I think they talked to the lawyers and it was like, there's not enough there. So that's the other one recently, that has popped up. So again, as I said, usually, if there's some meat on that bone, it's settled and never gets to court. Was a side issue, and similar issue is the sampling era in classic hip hop. I mean, classic hip hop goes, really through the 80s, but the sampling era in the early 90s, and a lot of those folks did the samples and did not call anybody, and then did not pay anybody, and the labels went knocking on doors and like collecting. So, and a lot of them sampled, did a great deal of sampling. And, I know De La Soul literally just in the last couple months finally hit the streaming services. And what took them so long was clearing up samples. And not everybody, signed on and was like, yeah, you can sample. So they actually had to either remove samples from their original works or do some sort of find another way to fill that hole in that portion of the music. So, and sampling is different because you're literally taking one of the the best sample songs out there, I think, is Genius of Love by the Time Time Club, and Mariah Carey did it. Lotto just did it with Big Energy. I think it was I can't remember Mariah Carey. So, but you're literally taking that song and looping it and not changing anything. So that bass line, the drums, the patch from the bass line. Now, if you change the patch and use those notes, but use a different, patch, and patches, I mean, that is the preset or whatever, all the little things you use to make that sound on the synthesizer, so back in the day, most synthesizers came with 64 patches, and so maybe 8 to 10 of them would be baseline. So if look, if you want to do Genius of Love, but use a different drum kit off of a drum machine and use a different drum patch or bass patch, and it's going to sound differently, and that's not rhythm and it's not lyrics. But when you're using the exact same setup, so to speak, that's where I'm going, synthesizing drum setup, and not even reprogramming it, but just using the recording of the original, then yeah, that's copyright infringement. So, but obviously Lotto and Mariah Carey, got permission from the Tom Tom Club. And I think that song, someone else is going to do that next decade. I mean, it's one of those classic songs that people are going to keep, sampling and recycling and put it out there. So anyway, yeah, this is fun. Deleted my Ed Sheeran and replaced it with this. So thanks for coming through. 5 albums now. The new one is out. The 317 Volume 2, and I also have two science fiction fantasy novels on Amazon and also a novella. So thank you again for coming through, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.